Naomi and Bob Bennett elevated their imagination in a rocky hilltop West Austin garden where spiritual design started with practical problems.
We had a redbud tree die, and we had a big rainstorm, and there was a runoff that we couldn't control. So I suggested we have a small pond in the front yard, and we invited Peter Fleury of Oasis Gardens to come look at a solution. However, he's a dreamer along with my husband, and so this small project became an all-inclusive one that took up the entire front yard and backyard, but really started with one redbud tree dying.
To control erosion and flooding, Peter Fleury threaded a dry creek bed across the front. At the front door, he bridged waterfalls and small ponds with a new flagstone sidewalk. A yoga teacher, Naomi wanted to harmonize the union of body, mind, and spirit with Texas land challenges and memories of Japan.
The reason you go over the bridge is because you're entering another dimension. You're going from the outside world to our world inside. And so that isn't design that's in the hardscape. You don't realize that there's an effect happening, that you're leaving the outside street world, ordinary place, and you're coming into this environment that's special, that's different, that has an ambiance. And so you do that with bridges and portals, but it's all unspoken.
One portal they changed was the front door entrance, opening up its facade. They lined the interior roof with cedar culled from the backyard.
Since I'm interested in astrology, I specifically asked for the urn to be at the top of that waterfall. I think we're entering the age of Aquarius, and the representation of that is an urn that pours out water from into the air. The Kuan Yin statues, she's the goddess of the lotus.
Once it got put in, I looked at it and I said, oh, it's beautiful, but what's it doing here? It looks so out of place. We didn't want anything formal. But what we came up with as a philosophy was where the Texas Hill Country meets the Orient.
We re-diverted the walkway to create that harmony and to change the pathway so it had a feng shui feel.
They clustered small native and exotic trees like Japanese maple with hardy perennials, bulbs, and wildflowers. Perpetual structure carries the transitory late spring garden into a summer and fall blooming palette. For a low-growing, evergreen grassy element, they chose Berkeley sedge.
It doesn't spread like grass, it just stays in little tufts. And we did throw out some bluebonnet seed because of that. And then everything else just shows up as volunteers.
We realized over time that we didn't have a front lawn, what we have is a meadow. So we treat it like a meadow.
In back, they never had a lawn. What's now a 75-foot waterfall, ponds, and living areas was once a gradually eroding ravine and invasive plants.
We used to have a zip line, and the boys would zip line across that ravine because that was the natural runoff of the hillside that was back there.
The house above us is, 15, 20 feet above our property. And so they had just put big rocks there to stabilize that ground so that they didn't fall off. We just thought, hey, that'd be a cool place to put something.
In fact, where you see the organic garden, it was so steep that I couldn't walk down it. I would slide down. Even the stone bench is really a retaining wall.
To turn an eroding eyesore they couldn't navigate except by zip line into a wondrous waterfall destination, Peter built retaining walls, terraced with planting ledges and sitting areas. It took 15 truckloads of Texas limestone boulders.
What we already had in natural rock was interlaced with what we added into it. So that's why it feels so natural, because it's from the local limestone quarries. That ravine wound up being the stream. The water is pumped up the hill up to the top and it recycles. But to build it, he had to start at the bottom and go up to the middle and stop. And then he had to start at the top and work himself way down to the middle. And then from the middle, then he could back off from that.
The middle is where we have kind of a secondary pond. It's everything else is a cascade until you get to the middle, which what we call the heart of the waterfall. And then from there, it continues cascading, and there's actually 23 cascades from the top to the koi pond.
2005 was a year of nothing but hardscape, and then we spent 2006 and 2007 basically planting.
Bob hauled home lots of plants from Austin Nurseries and from Dan Hosage's Madrone Nursery in San Marcos. Then they met Scott Ogden of Plant Driven Design.
He brings in a level of knowledge that we hadn't acquired yet. So he elevated it from ordinary to magnificent. We already had good bones. We already had the hardscape, we already had the oak trees. And so since he believes in the plant-driven design, he just took that concept and lifted up to another level that we hadn't gotten to.
Plants of all origins made the grade for performance in drought, humidity, and freezing weather.
We have layers and layers of flowers and blooms that come throughout the season.
When we come out here, it evokes a feeling and experience of serenity and peace. You can see it from every room in our house. That experience of serenity and calmness comes in through osmosis when we're not even thinking about it, because it affects the quality of our life on it every single day. The more time you spend here, the more we get to appreciate it, and it gets to inform and affect us.
To irrigate plants and fill the ponds, they installed rainwater collection.
And so we converted all of our gutters into accesses to basically divert them into water tanks. So we have 2 tanks that are at this level and 2 underneath the deck, and then there's piping that connects all of them. And we did wind up putting a deer-proofing perimeter around the property, because to only allow deer-resistant plants wasn't going to work.
They used mountain cedar cut from the ravine. After stripping the bark, they stained and shaped the limbs as fences and portals.
No one can actually see the fencing. But in the organic garden, we wanted to emphasize that, and we used the cedar again because it was already a running theme. We thought it would be unusual and different.
Near the house, a deck adjoining an outdoor kitchen overlooks the hot tub and stone bench. They can pick a grand view from any perspective. One overlook is from their hilltop tugboat, inspired by spare parts of a little girl's dollhouse.
And the kids absolutely loved it.
But the story of that, because there's always a story, is that this was at the end of the real bad recession in Texas, and people were out of work and things were bad. And there was a gentleman that went door to door and was looking for work, and knocked on our door and said, "I'm a carpenter. You have anything you need to have done?" And we said, "Can you build a boat?"
Since the boys have grown up, now it's a party boat.
Alongside the house, an intimate retreat invites quiet meditation. Fragrant roses clamber over a fern-adorned grotto waterfall. Not only a privacy screen from the neighbors, its reinforced walls prevent mudslides. And it's a restful view from indoors.
It calls to us, and we call to it.